Hello, my name is Shane Ueda, and this is my cultural autobiography presentation. The book I read and chose to do my cultural autobiography presentation on is Count Us In, Growing Up with Down Syndrome by Jason Kingsley and Mitchell Levitz. The two main characters in the book and also the co-authors are Jason Kingsley, who was born on June 27, 1974. He attended all his schooling in New York, and he was diagnosed with Down syndrome a few hours after his birth. Mitchell Levitz was also born in New York. He was born on April 10th, 1971, and same like Jason, he was diagnosed by doctors with Down syndrome a few hours after birth. Here's some background on the two characters and the co-authors. So Jason Kingsley and Mitchell Levitz, they both grew up together as friends and shared different perspectives throughout the book based upon their experiences and their thoughts on their disability, which is Down syndrome, and how their individual identities came to form. Alright, this is going to be the outline of my presentation in which I'm going to present it. So first of all, I'm just going to let everyone know who doesn't really know what Down syndrome is. I'm going to describe exactly how a child is diagnosed with Down syndrome and the characteristics of it. Next part, I'm going to be talking about the main themes and theories in the book, which are based upon stereotypes and biases. Next would be nonverbal and verbal communication styles, as well as cultural values and their cultural beliefs in the formation and creation of their individual identities through their experiences. Alright, so just so everyone gets a better understanding, what is Down syndrome? Down syndrome is a genetic disease caused by an extra chromosome, and it is rarely hereditary. Children experience a delay in development such as reading, writing, talking, sitting, standing, and have certain medical conditions such as heart defects. About half the children with Down syndrome are born with some type of heart defect. These heart problems can be life-threatening and may require surgery in early infancy. Some health problems related to Down syndrome would be leukemia, which is more diagnosed, which I should say young children with Down syndrome have increased risk of getting leukemia. As a child transitions to an adult and if they have Down syndrome, they have a higher risk of getting dementia around the age of 50, and they also have a higher rate of seizures as well. Those who have Down syndrome usually have sleep apnea because of soft tissue and skeletal changes that lead to the obstruction of their airway. Children and adults with Down syndrome are at greater risk of obstructive sleep apnea. Also, those with Down syndrome are more prone to obesity compared with the general population. Alright, for the first part of my presentation, I'll be talking about the biases and stereotypes based upon the three theories, which is inflexible stereotyping or mindless stereotyping, assumptions of a group, as well as the labeling of a group. So stereotyping is just an exaggeration of pictures we create for a group based on inflexible beliefs and expectations about the characteristics of the group. Some examples of stereotyping or biases, more towards biases, by the parents when their children were born with, when, should I say, Jason and Mitchell were born with Down syndrome. Their thoughts were that One parent felt she was disappointed as well as sad, and she didn't want to share the news with her husband. Another parent quoted that her newborn is less than perfect and nothing will ever prepare you for this. As for the professionals involved in this, just keep in mind that this is from the 70s, so the thinking was a lot different back then. Doctors labeled, stereotype, and had biases for those born with Down syndrome. Some beliefs shared by the doctors to the parents were the child will be mentally retarded, the child will never be able to read, write, sit, talk, walk, or even recognize the parents in comparison with a stranger. It was so bad that another doctor actually recommended that the child be institutionalized, as the child would be a burden to the family, and suggested to one of the mothers to tell her husband, family, and friends that her son was dead. Psychologists also had a very biased view, which was very negative, as the psychologist told the parent that the Down syndrome within a child, raising a child will put stress on the marriage, and the parents will feel consistent disappointment as the child gets older as the years progress. As for stereotyping and biases experienced by Jason and Mitchell, in school they were teased because of the stigma attached to them with having Down syndrome. Other kids would take advantage of them, assuming they didn't know any better. As Jason quoted, others would take advantage of me because they know I look different. They'll treat me like I'm different, and they know I'm trying to make friends and I'm a giving person, so they will use this to their advantage. So once again, we see, like I said, the assumptions of a group that's based upon labeling, which is the Rowley view back then, which is based on the philosophy. And for the picture right here, as put, Down syndrome is not a tragedy. Ignorance is a tragedy, because back then, like I said, it was all based on professionals' views and on the philosophy of Down syndrome and what they thought it was, in which the individual cannot pretty much have a self-sustained life of independence. The next theory that was brought up in the book that we learned so far this semester was intercultural communication process, and the things that I seen that relate to the book would be the different cultural communities and societal embedded systems, and these all involve knowledge, attitude, and skills. So my example of this would be the parents understood the perspectives of the different professionals' views based upon the philosophy of Down syndrome being correlated to developmental and health issues throughout the child's life and the strain it will put on the parents themselves. The parents, they decide to take a different approach as they seek out support groups by talking to other parents whose children have Down syndrome, as this was a way to interact with other individuals who shared the same belief in their child being able to succeed despite their disability. In speaking to other parents, they were able to see the ability instead of the disability of the child, as these groups reshaped their thinking in terms of process and outcome that was opposite of what professionals were recommending to them. The group that both parents decided to join was called the Parent Assistance Committee on Down Syndrome, which was focused on the shared traumatic situation and helping from one parent to another learn about Down syndrome and offer support as well as parental strategies. The three pictures you see right here, I feel best represent this. First of all, you see a mother with a child who has Down syndrome, and the mother being there, not being in denial or being mad about her child having Down syndrome, but being supportive of her child, even though the child is learning in a different way. Another picture I have here is it's up to you to guide your child and to show them how beautiful the world is, because basically your child is going to be a reflection upon you as a person, your traditions, your values, as well as your beliefs. Another thing too is the last picture will be self-esteem. pretty much teaching a child at a young age, I mean, giving them every opportunity to boost their self confidence is very important, because you don't want the child to start believing in all these stereotypes that are floating around or what others see them as. So instead, if you're there to support your child and with the support of other parents and sharing strategies with one another, the child with Down syndrome can actually grow up to be a functioning adult. The next theory that I seen in the book dealt with nonverbal and verbal communication through the experiences of Jason and Mitchell. So I used these four different theories, which is non-linguistic cues, facial expressions, boundaries and proxemics, encoding and decoding. So first of all, non-linguistic cues is expressed through your eye contact as well as touching. A good example that was shown in the book was that Mitchell would think and base his future aspiration behaviors from what he observes others doing on TV, such as actors or professional sports athletes. He would also base his behavior in school upon the observation of other kids, in which he thought was the societal norms of making friends and being cool around other groups in school as a way to fit in. Another very interesting nonverbal cue that deals with boundaries and proxemics, as well as facial expressions. This was Jason's experience actually, where Jason shared an experience which he was looking at a girl, and he thought that if she smiled, it means she liked you, or she was interested in you, or she was just being friendly. Jason took this nonverbal cue wrong with one of the girls at his school. He didn't recognize and understand the proxemics as well as a person's intimate and personal zone. As he walked up to the girl and just hugged her, the girl told him to stop, but Jason was already hugging her. At that point, Jason ended up offending the girl, and he ended up getting in trouble as well as suspended from school. And this whole experience about facial expressions, non-linguistic cues, and boundaries and proxemics, Jason learned this from his experience when he describes a girl. And the experience was this: stop, danger, caution, trouble, touch, trouble. That's all he interpreted the whole situation. As for verbal communication, both Mitchell and Jason agree that communicating their wants and understanding others is important for their own identity and independence. As a belief was to clarify by asking questions and not assuming, and by learning different meanings of words in the context of sentences, as this was a way of understanding the different beliefs and will lead to a better understanding of others in terms of respect and respecting, like I said, others' boundaries as well as others' views. And this was also used as a way of building relationships as well as friendships with others. The last intercultural communicational theories was based upon Jason and Mitchell's experiences in relations to values, beliefs, and their own personal identities that they are able to form. I use these five different theories that are under values, beliefs, and identity. First is identity, meaning, function, discovering cultural values, identity, individualism, value pattern, meaning, destiny, and time, and internal locus of control. I use these terms as a way Jason Mitchell will attach meaning and significance to different experiences and understanding the values of individualism in terms of shaping and the development of their own identities, as they believe in the doing and being solutions with the internal locus of control that will emphasize their own free will, individual motivations, effort, and personal responsibility to be their own independent person, learning from past success and failures. Both Jason and Mitchell believed that Down syndrome was part of their lives and accepted it as their identity. The early stages of coming to terms with Down syndrome was described as pain you want to stop, as both Jason and Mitchell had a hard time accepting this disability, as they felt ostracized by others and felt slower than their classmates, which was kind of a drawback to them in which they experienced growing up. Just like everyone else, they learned right from wrong based on their parents' teaching as well as support they received from their teachers. Through their different experiences, they both learned about the societal norms and each formed their own identities. Mitchell believed in the traditions he learned from his family and valued his family's opinions and approval for adult decisions that he would later be making in his life, such as going to college or what kind of future to pursue, or to even get the approval to be independent and move on his own. Jason, he values his family's opinions, but he believes more in independent decision making as a way of transitioning to being an adult. Summarizing both of their views of Down syndrome in relationship to their identity is that knowing oneself and understanding your limitations, stop fighting the feeling of self doubt, to be flexible, and to learn to accept Down syndrome as a way of life, as this is the primary way to move towards independence and self determination. This quote right here I found, it says, having Down syndrome is like being born normal. I'm just like you, and you are just like me. We are all born in different ways. That is the way I can describe it. I have a normal life. So although there was a lot of questioning in their identity as they're growing up, because they did recognize, of course, how others would treat them. They did recognize that they were different in the way they learned. But as through experiences and from the support and just the overall values that were passed down to them by their parents, they were able to accept Down syndrome as part of their identity. And in accepting Down syndrome as part of their identity, they're able to transition more to an independent kind of life. When I mean independent, meaning that they're more confident with their decision making. They had a better understanding of others' perspectives as well as their own, and they're able to accept Down syndrome as part of their life no matter what, and able to come to terms with it and able to succeed. This is one, I feel this picture, even though it is not of Jason or of Mitchell, I feel that it has a lot of relevance to just the understanding of those with Down syndrome and how stereotyping and biases and how that whole um, scientific based philosophy on Down syndrome, or how an individual cannot succeed and will become more of a burden to their family and society. I feel this message is a way of justifying that those with Down syndrome are able to succeed and become a functioning member of society. As this one person quoted, I'm a working adult, and I expect people to treat me the way that a 25-year-old man should be treated. It is very important to not underestimate people with Down syndrome. We are capable of many things. Just to put a note on this, the the two authors, Jason and Mitchell, from the Growing Up with Down Syndrome of Calling Us In, it does give like a update on them because the book was written when Jason was 16 and when Mitchell was 19. The update for it was just that Jason has all graduated high school. He actually passed his SAT, got his high school diploma, and is now living on his own and thinking about attending college. Whereas Mitchell, he decided not to attend college. He is living on his own with a girlfriend who also has Down syndrome, but they are living independently together, not in their parents' house, but together away from their parents. And Mitchell is now an advocate for disability rights. Right, this last quote summarizes my whole presentation about having that whole identity and how stereotypes and biases, how they're formed, and how they actually don't have any relevance to a person's life, but are just only a small part of a person's life. And the quote is, having Down syndrome has not stopped me from having success and growth, in which we see in both of these characters of the book, which is based upon their real experience, as you do see them living independent lives and actually having careers and being a functioning member of society. Alright, thank you for enjoying my presentation.